guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Vega and I'm back in the guides with another video. If you are new, welcome to the channel and don't forget to subscribe before you leave. I'm finally doing my labor and delivery story time. Finally, after 8 months. The week leading up to my labor, let's start there. I was overdue. Right, I was overdue. The doctor gave me a date for, it was a date in October. So in October, the 1st of October, I went on maternity leave. So I was home from the beginning of October. Weeks go by, I still haven't given birth, right? So at this point, my mom is like, I have to go back to the doctor to find out what's happening because I'm not getting any pains yet. Nothing is happening, you know? And at that point, I was already so tired of being pregnant. I was like, yo, when is this baby coming? Everybody's asking me, when are you giving birth? Everything was just overwhelming, and I was just like, you know what, let me just go to the doctor and find out what is actually happening. So the Monday we go to the doctor, which by the way, I went to a private doctor. I didn't go to like the public clinic, you know, obviously, because if you give birth in a public hospital, you have to go to the clinic. So I never went to the clinic. I saw a private doctor, right? So we go to the doctor. He does an exam, and I think he did a membrane sweep. I don't know how to explain what a membrane sweep is. So then he tells me, okay, if nothing happens by Thursday, come back, then I'm gonna send you to the hospital. Tuesday goes by, Wednesday goes by, nothing happens. I go back Thursday. Thursday he does another membrane sweep, and this time it was a bit more, I wouldn't say painful, but it was, you know, uncomfortable. So he did the membrane sweep. I go back home. Again, nothing happens. Friday, go to the hospital. I had 3 options of where I could go give birth because I didn't have medical aid and stuff like that. So I had 3 options of where I could go give birth. So it was the hospital in town, the hospital in Prenatal, and the hospital, well, not the hospital, like a birthing center, whatever it is, Dani Lokasi, I don't know where that is. The hospital in Prenatal, I told myself, ik ga niet Dani, because if I go there, I'm gonna die. I do not want to go to the hospital. Ek wil niks hoor van die hospital af. So then I said, okay, you know what, let me go to the one in town. So then the doctor tells me that on that paper, on that piece of paper that he gave me, I have to write a date, not a date. I have to write an address that is based in town, because if I wrote my home address like here in Prenatal, they would have sent me home, or they would have said like I must go to the hospital in Prenatal, and I didn't want that. So luckily my grandma stays in town, so I was like, I just used her address, right? So fine, we go to the doctor, I mean to the hospital. This was the Friday morning, and we were there early, like I think 8 o'clock, and the doctor told me that I have to say something in order for them to help me. There was something specific that I had to say in order for them to help me, because if they see that I'm not in labor, my water didn't break, I'm not getting pains or anything, they're not gonna help me. So if it's not an emergency, they're not gonna help me. So there was something that I had to say in order for them to actually help me. So I tell the nurse, well, first, before I even got to the nurse, it was a waiting game. We waited for I don't know how long before the nurse could see me, and then we waited even longer for the doctor, because apparently they were understaffed, which is obviously no surprise. Eventually the nurse sees me. She puts me on this monitor thing. It's this, I don't know what it's called, but it's to monitor the baby's heart rate and to listen to the baby's heartbeat, whatever the case. So I had to lay there for like, I don't know how long, because she needed to hear my baby's heartbeat and stuff like that. And that thing made me so paranoid. The heartbeat, like it went slow and then it went fast again, like it was inconsistent beats, you know what I mean? So that made me paranoid. I was like, why is my baby's heart beating like this? Like, what's happening? But turns out it was normal, right? Okay, fine. So the nurse tells me, which by the way, she gave me a lot of shit because I saw a private doctor and I didn't go to a public clinic. I don't know why they feel so strongly about if you like go give birth at a public hospital, you have to go to a public clinic. I don't know why, but she gave me a lot of shit because I saw a private doctor. She had the audacity to ask me, oh, you have money, ne, for private doctors? I said, bitch. She tried it. Eventually, after seeing the nurse, we went to the waiting room, and then the doctor is up and down, up and down, up and down. At this point, my baby daddy is impatient as fuck. He walked up to the doctor and said, listen, like, you know, you need to come and see us, type shit. So then the doctor tells him like, no, they're understaffed, we must just be patient, what. So she ups and downs. Dan praat sy met Dina, dan praat sy met Dina. but nobody's helping us. There was a doctor's room on that other side, and there were benches. So then we decided, you know what, let's just go sit there. Maybe they will notice. So eventually another doctor comes. She was like the nicest person, God bless her heart. She does a scan, she examines me, whatever. So now her scan showed that I was supposed to give birth in December. I said, bitch, there's no way, because at this point I'm already full term. So what is this? So then she tells me, listen, I am going to schedule you for an induction. Let that sink in. Bitch, I was like, yo, I'm not ready for this. That was the one thing that I didn't want. I was like, I do not want to get induced. Oh my gosh. But obviously, if it has to be done, it has to be done. So she asks me, do you want to come in the Sunday for the Monday or the Monday for the Tuesday? And I said, no, let me come in the Sunday for the Monday. Let's do it as soon as possible, because I need to get this baby out of me. I was already over my pregnancy at that point. I was tired, I was exhausted, I was uncomfortable. I was just like, I just want to meet my baby at this point, so let's do it as soon as possible. She writes on this little card, schedules me, writes the dates and whatever. We go home. Bitch, we arrived at that hospital at 8:30. We only went home at like past 12 to 1. We go home. Little did I know that same evening I was gonna go into labor, bitch. So that evening around 10, my pains start. Now, it felt like, you know those cramps that you get when like you're about to have diarrhea, right? I don't know if I'm the only one, but that's how I felt it at first. Yes, it did feel like period pains, but it also felt like I have diarrhea. So that's what it felt like to me, right? But that's just me. So now I'm like, okay, let me go to the bathroom to see if I can get a little bit of a relief or whatever. That was probably like the wrong thing to do, because they say like when you're in labor you're not supposed to go to the toilet. I don't know, but anyways, after that I felt relief, I'm not gonna lie. So in my head I was thinking like, maybe I have diarrhea because I'm a bit stressed or whatever the case may be. I don't know, because I was in denial. I don't know why I was in denial, but I was in denial because I was like, is this labor pains? Yes, it was a pain that I've never felt before, but it was also confusing. I was like, man, am I in labor? Am I getting labor pains? What is this? So eventually I go back to my bedroom. I lay in bed. As soon as I get back to the bedroom, the pains come back. From the bathroom to my room, I had no pains. That's why I thought, okay, no, it's not labor pains, because it's like, why am I all of a sudden feeling a relief after I just went to the bathroom? But then when I got into bed, the pains came back. So at that point I was like, okay, let me time this contractions. In my head I was like, okay, this is not contractions, like whatever, it's not even that deep. So I time it. My contractions weren't even far apart at that point. And it started to become more consistent, and that's when I was like, no bitch, this is definitely contractions, because when I looked at the time it was already 11 p.m. I was like, no, this has been going on for an hour. This must mean something, Sindre. So at that point, the pains are getting a bit more intense, but it wasn't anything that I couldn't handle. Like I could still like function properly, because still throughout those pains that I was feeling, I was still in denial. I don't know why. At that point, everybody was sleeping in the house. My grandmother also stayed over, because when I went on maternity leave, she came to sleep over at our house because my mom didn't want me to be alone. So then I'm like, okay, let me text my mom and tell her like I'm getting pains, because what is this? So I text my mother. Immediately she comes to my room and she's like, okay, get dressed, we need to go to the hospital. Which I obviously knew my mom was gonna react like that. My mom is very dramatic, and I'm like so calm. I'm just like, I don't even know what's happening, but okay. I get dressed, I text my boyfriend, I'm like, babe, I'm getting contractions. Actually no, before I texted my mom, I texted him, and I was like, babe, I think I'm getting contractions. And then he texts me on some, okay, let me know if it's getting worse, something like that. Bitch, before I could even text him to say like, baby, it's getting worse, I already texted my mom, because I was like, we need to get to the hospital, Sindre. So when we were on our way, I texted my boyfriend. I'm like, babe, we're gonna come pick you up now. We're on the way to the hospital. When we get to the hospital, it is so quiet. Like the maternity ward was so quiet. It was like, that's nimandani. There was not a baby crying. There was not a woman there crying, screaming. Nothing, girl. I was the only one in labor. So we get to the reception where that one nurse was sitting, and my boyfriend is like, my girlfriend is in labor, what do we do? Those people have no sense of emergency. They have no sense of urgency whatsoever. They don't give a fuck. I thought like when I got there, the world's gonna revolve around me. Everybody's gonna fall around just wanting to help me, this, that, bitch. I was humbled. Which obviously makes sense, because if it's not an emergency, they can't help you. Like, yes, you're getting pains, yes, you are in labor, but if that baby's not coming out, they can't do anything about it for Sandra. And I only realized that after the fact, because in that moment I thought they need to help me, like I am in pain. So yeah, anyways, so the nurse directs us to the waiting area, so I have to go sit at the waiting area. And I tell you, there was no one there. In my head, how I pictured when I go into labor, when we get to the hospital, I pictured that there's gonna be like girls there in pain walking up and down in the hallways and shit like that, but it was just me. I was the only one in labor at that time. So the nurse eventually tells me to take my bags, we're gonna go to the room, and she directs me to the room. And then the nurse tells my mom and them they have to leave, they can't stay there. Them being them, they stayed for as long as they possibly could, because my mom was like, you're gonna have to put us out physically, we're not gonna go anywhere. Just trust my mom to be that person. So she takes me to this room, and there were 2 other girls in there. They had IVs, so I'm assuming those are the girls who got induced. So I go to the room, get situated on the bed, which, by the way, just a tip, when you go to the hospital, like when you go give birth in a public hospital, please take a blanket and a pillow. Please make sure daar is die blankets, daar is die duvets, daar is die pillows. So please make sure that you take your own, you know. So then I got situated on the bed. At this point the pains are getting worse, I'm just over there on the bed. I am here, ek doen acrobatics, and it's just, the pain is hitting me. At this point it was consistent, non-stop. It wasn't at a point where, okay, it's giving me a little bit of a break, I can just breathe for like a minute or two. No, bitch, it was consistent, and it got worse and worse and worse. So eventually, I don't know, my body reacted like, I think my body went into shock because I got nauseous. So I tell my mom I need to throw up. So then she tells the nurse, listen, she needs to throw up, please give me a bucket. So the nurse gives my mom a bucket, my mother gives a bucket to me. As soon as that bucket was in front of my face, I threw up, because I think my body really just went into shock, because bitch, what? After I threw up, okay, fine, the nurse tells my mom and them, okay, you guys really need to leave at this point. Like, you can't stay here for Sandra. Which didn't make sense to us, because it's like I was the only one in labor. Like, hulle kon gemaak het laat hulle maar sit for Sandra. Bitch, I was so sad when my boyfriend had to leave. I was like, no. Shame, but I can't even imagine how he must have felt, because he really wanted to be there. But yeah, that's a public hospital for you. So they had to leave. So then they left, and as soon as they left, the nurse was like, okay, bye you guys. She switched off the light. I said, bitch, you're switching off the light. So what must I do here by myself? I was just like, be in pain, and like, you're not gonna help me, you're not gonna, like, you're not telling me. She didn't tell me anything. She didn't give me any type of direction. She didn't say, okay, this is gonna happen, when this happens you must do this. Fuck all. She didn't speak to me. She didn't Nuxie, that girl, het die lig afgesit, toe gaan sy uit. I said, okay. Okay. Hey, I'm on the bed. And the pains are there, and the pains are there. The pains are not going away, not even for a second. It's consistent. Because I remember, as I was laying on the bed, well, I wasn't laying, I was like on all fours, on my 2 legs and my 2 arms. And I remember telling myself, I can't do this for like the next few hours. How the hell am I going to survive for the next few hours? Because in my mind, I didn't think that I was gonna give birth so soon. Or let me say, I didn't think I was gonna give birth at the time that I actually gave birth. I thought it was gonna be like when the sun comes up, because we arrived at the hospital at around 2:12, I think. I don't even know what time we arrived at the hospital, but it was a Saturday morning. I gave birth Saturday morning. In my head, I thought I'm only gonna give birth like when the sun comes up, like I'm gonna have these pains for hours and hours and hours and hours. I really did not think that my labor was gonna be so fast, but nonetheless. So yeah, the pains are so bad at this point. It's giving me no breaks. It's consistent. Like, it kom net aan een. At that point I felt like, you know what, let me get on the floor, because everything feels better when you're like on the floor. So I get on the floor, I'm like, I throw the duvet on the floor, I'm like, let me lay my ass on the floor, because it was actually quite cold in the hospital. So as soon as I touched the ground, bitch, Within 10 seconds, there was this one contraction. The whole time, I was very silent. I wasn't one of those girlies who cry, make sounds, moan because they're in pain and shit like that. I wasn't one of those girlies. I was a very silent laborer. But there was this one contraction. I was thinking, I don't give a fuck about these two girls sleeping here. If I wake you up, I don't give a fuck because I'm in pain. That contraction, that was the one. Right when I let out that scream, my water broke and it sounded like a balloon popping. I just felt warmth down my legs. I said, bitch, my water broke. I was so scared of that, but I was like, oh my gosh, what the fuck. So then I called the nurse, right? I'm like, nurse, but obviously this bitch didn't hear me. So I had to stand up and literally walk to where she was, like in the front reception area. So I get my ass up. I'm like, okay, how am I gonna do this? So I get up, I walk to the nurse and I tell the nurse, listen, my water just broke. And then she came, but she was so slow that I was like, so there's no sense of urgency or whatsoever. Even though my water just broke, like you're still just gonna take your time. Okay, that's cool. She comes around, eventually we go back to the room and then she says she's gonna check me. I almost kicked that nurse in her fucking face because she hurt me. Which is so funny because when my doctor did it, he was like, no, it's just gonna be uncomfortable, it's not gonna be painful. Because when he did it, it wasn't painful, it was just uncomfortable. So then he explained it to me and he was like, you know what, you must just relax, they're gonna do it, it's gonna be super fast, it's not gonna be painful. But bitch, when I got there, so she checks me. Number one, she doesn't tell me how far I've dilated. She doesn't tell me anything, because like I told you guys, she didn't talk to me, she didn't say anything. She didn't tell me how far I was dilated, she didn't tell it nothing, she didn't say anything. All she said was, okay, whatever you do, don't push, ne? If you feel like you need to go to the bathroom, do not push. Whatever you do not push. Which is like the craziest thing to say because that's something that you can't control. When that baby feels like he wants to come out or she wants to come out, she wants to come out or he wants to come out. You can't control. If you feel like you need to release, you need to release. If you feel like you need to push, you need to push. It wasn't even like 10 seconds and I said, no, I feel like I need to go. Let's wrap this thing up. Mind you, while all this is happening, I'm still getting the pains. In it full net. So eventually she says to me, okay, get undressed, we're gonna go to the other room. I take everything off, birthday suit. Well, it wasn't birthday suit because I said I had like a sports bra on. She says to me, we're gonna go to the labor and delivery room. So I had to walk there. So I'm following behind the nurse. We get to the room. As soon as I got there, she's like, okay, get on the bed. They pull out those things where you have to put your legs on. And then I put my legs on there. As soon as that happened, she says to me, when you feel a contraction, push. I said, bitch, so fast. I thought they're still gonna prepare me and to say, okay, listen, this is what's gonna happen, they're gonna talk me through it. Bitch, nothing. They said to me, as soon as you feel a contraction, push. So I'm like, okay, I feel a contraction, let me push. So I'm drucking, bruh. I'm pushing. Now the whole time that I was pushing, it felt like I'm not doing anything because I kept asking the nurse. I was like, is he coming out? Can you see him? Can you feel him? What's happening? Because I was so confused. Like I felt like I'm pushing but nothing is happening. So then I hear the nurse. There were two nurses. So the one nurse says to the other one, she speaks in vernac and she says, I'm too small, they're gonna have to cut me. The stitches made everything like just bad for me. I'm not talking about like the actual labor, I'm talking about like the postpartum, like the healing and everything. Give me 0. I don't want that shit again because I really think she fucked me up though, low-key. So she tells this one nurse that they're gonna have to cut me. She pulls out the scissor, bitch. Unfortunately, when you're in labor, you can't do anything. You can't pull away, you can't be like, no, please don't cut me, bitch. You have to lay there. There's nothing you can do about it. So she cuts me. I was like, okay, cool. It was such a burning sensation. I was like, what the freak? But anyways, after she cut me, I gave like 2 pushes and then boom, my baby came out. When my baby came out, it felt like such a huge relief. It literally felt like I'm taking the biggest shit in my entire life. Like when she pulled the baby out. I'm not even kidding. So my baby comes out and I was like, ah, thank you, Jesus. 5 seconds after he came out, he sneezed. That was like the cutest thing ever. But he didn't cry though. Like he didn't, I mean, he cried, but he cried for like, I don't know, 2 seconds. And then she took him to that table where she wipes him down, measures him, weighs him, all that type of stuff. And then she came to put him on my chest. The most precious moment ever. Like when I tell you, those labor pains didn't make me cry. The fact that that nurse cut me, I didn't cry. But as soon as my baby laid on my chest, that brought me to tears. I was like, that is so priceless, right? So yeah, as soon as my baby laid on my chest, I couldn't control my tears. It was like the most precious thing ever. If I could relive that moment, like just holding my baby for the first time, I would do it over and over and over again, which is so precious. It's just a beautiful moment. So then as I'm laying there, now they have to stitch me back up. The stitches were the most painful thing of the entire labor. The actual pains, like the labor pains and actually giving birth, like pushing the baby out, is nothing compared to those fucking stitches. Those stitches were my worst nightmare. They still are to this day. Like, it traumatized me. So they stitched me back up, and then the nurse made a joke. She was like, oh, there's still 3 more to go. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And she was like, no, I'm just joking, it's the last one. So she stitched me back up. After getting stitches, oh yeah, by the way, before they had to stitch me back up, the placenta had to come out. Now that was the most disgusting thing because it felt so weird. So then she stitches me back up. They put me on the wheelchair and then pushes me back to the room. So I went to a different room. So I went to go lay on the bed, situated, everything like that. When I tell you, I did not blink an eye. I told myself, I'm not gonna sleep. I'm gonna stay awake until the sun comes up. I texted my mom. After texting them and everything, saying, oh, I just gave birth, send them a picture of my baby, whatever, I tell my mom, listen, when the sun comes up, first thing, come fetch me. Or come to the hospital. Obviously, I couldn't leave immediately because I still had to do tests and give medication and all these types of things. But I was like, I'm leaving that same day. Ek gaan nie slaap. And thank God it worked out in my favor because I left that same day. So basically, my labor was only 3 hours and 45 minutes. I got pains 10 o'clock the evening and I gave birth 1:45 that Saturday morning. So my labor was very fast. It was very quick. I really thought I was going to be in labor for like hours and hours and hours. So yeah, that was that. We went home. I took my baby home. And then after that was just the struggle of like healing from the stitches, the postpartum, all the type of stuff, which was it was a struggle for me, child. The postpartum was something that I don't recommend, even though you can't control it, but I still don't recommend. Yeah, postpartum for me was like absolutely bad. But yeah, man, that was my labor and delivery story time. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope it was worth it because I made you guys wait so long for the story time. But if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.